So we want to create an angled tool holder, such as these tool holders here that I have on this Haas machine, to do different angles. So if you have one of these on your machine, we can go ahead and go through how to create that right now. So this model is from a company called EWS, and we can see it's an adjustable holder. So this holder, let's see, it's got two different solid models, one for the outside portion and one for the adjustable portion. So we're going to go ahead and first orient this so that it's in the correct orientation. So this is the face that is going to interface or be flush up against the turret face. So we want to pick this solid face here, and we want to come to the home tab, and on the home tab we have these align commands, and there's a little arrow at the bottom. We want to pick align Z, and what that will do is it should make that face that we selected normal to the Z-axis, with the Z-axis positive going up into the turret, and then that face is now going to be located at XY0, which is what we want, because the origin point here, this center, is going to determine how this, or where this appears inside of the ESPRIT simulation when we first load it. So we want to also make sure that in ESPRIT the x-axis points toward the main spindle. So I can see here that this is rotating, basically about the X, and we want it to rotate about the Y. So what I'm going to do here is basically rotate this -90 degrees about the Z axis or about the origin. So you can hit Control A on your keyboard, or you can right click and say copy, right click and say select all, and then right click and say copy. And here we want to come over to move. Well, let's first pick rotate and then move, and then we could leave it for the origin. I'm going to say -90, and we're going to use the right hand rule on that, which is basically when your thumb is aligned along the Z-axis, your rotational vector. If your hand is curling where your fingers are curling toward your palm, that's a positive rotation. If you have a clenched fist and you extend your fingers, that's a negative rotation. So we're going to rotate the model -90. And when I do that, we see that now this is going to rotate about basically the y-axis, and this is facing the main spindle here. Logo out with the readout, the angular readout here is going to be toward the operator. So what do we want to do at this point? We want to go ahead and position this adjustable portion so that it is at the correct angle that I want to use on my machine. So currently ESPRIT doesn't allow you to change this in the ESPRIT interface. You have to make a holder for each adjusted angle. So if I want to do that here, I need to define an axis to rotate this about. And we don't have one, but the solid has some basically circular elements built into it. So what I want to do is probably just make a line that is going to give me a rotation. And what I'll do there is maybe use this circle and maybe this circle, or I've got these edges that are circular edges as well. And I could use the center point. It looks like that's like this is going to rotate about the center there. So might help to maybe go to a clear view, and you can definitely see everything in there. So it just depends on which one you want to use. From a clear view, maybe I'll just stick with these over here. So what I'm going to do here is go to geometry and do we'll do a line 2. So you can see as I move my mouse from the outside to the inside, as long as I keep very close to that rotational axis, I can go ahead and digitize, let's say, this point, and then we'll move inward here and pick one of these other ones, and then I get this line. And I'll go back to a shaded view, and you can see that that line is, so you want to be careful about what you're picking here. You want to make sure that you're picking the centers so that when you rotate this, it's going to indeed match up with the way that it would on the actual machine. So now what we want to do is actually pick this solid body on the interior, and again, using that right hand rule, we're going to go with a positive 45 degrees. So we're going to pick that, we're going to right click, say copy, rotate, move, and we're going to go with a negative 45. I'm not going to use the origin. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to pick this line, and that was actually the wrong way. I wanted it to go the other way, but I guess it doesn't really matter. For you, whatever you're doing, you're going to rotate this so that it matches up with the direction that you're going to be using this, inside of ESPRIT. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit Control Z on my keyboard and undo that. So what I might want to do if I'm going to be using this at multiple angles, I might want to come here to File, Save As, and save this as a specific holder. So here, go to your holders wherever this was loaded in from, etc., and save this just as the default, because now you've got it positioned with your center, your line of rotation, and then every time you make one, it'll be a lot easier to edit that, so you're not starting from scratch. So if I've saved this now, what I can do is then take this, I'm going to go ahead and re-rotate that. I'm going to do the positive version of this. Oh, what we want to do is do that again because I typed that in incorrectly, and pick this. And now what we can do is define what we call our tool spindle axis. So this has a live axis that doesn't match up with any machine milling axes. So what we need to do is create something called a tool spindle axis or tool spindle adapter position. Just like a TA or an HA, this is a TSA. So here we're going to do this at this face. So what I can do is at the home, I can come here to these work plane commands, and I'm going to use this work plane from geometry, and I'm going to pick this front face. And what it does is it basically, on this one, it snaps this work plane right to the face, right to the center, which is good. And what I want is to actually rotate this 180 degrees because I want my Z factor to go inward toward the holder. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to say rotate UVW, and you could rotate about either the X or the Y. We're just going to do 180 about X, 0 about Y, and then 0 about Z. And we get that, which is what we want. And we're just going to come up here to say add a new work plane. We're going to call it TSA1. And the nice thing about a TSA is it automatically creates a tool adapter position for you and a holder adapter position for you embedded into the TSA. So we don't need to do anything else. So at this point, if you're happy with the way that this is, you can come up to File, Save As, and do a holder file, GDML, and then save this in your holders folder. What I'm going to do is hit cancel, and I'm going to change some colors because for me I like to make the colors all uniform looking. So if I could pick this whole solid on the outside, and we can come here to the Properties tab, If you don't have properties open, you can go to Home, Show, Hide, Properties. So I'm going to come here to the General and just click in the colors and pick a light gray. And then for this one, I'm going to do basically the same thing. Or actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this, because of this outside, I don't want it to be too dark maybe. So what you can do is come down here and look at all of this stuff. If you want to pick only, let's say, faces, you can select in the box to make it a white color, which means we're not going to pick any type of body, and then pick face. So we're only going to pick faces. So if you have that selected, and then come here to your propagation, and for faces we want to do one of these colors, either RGB or HIS. So I'm going to hold the Shift key on my keyboard, and I'm going to pick that face, and it's going to select all similar face colors. I'm going to right click, come to copy, and on attribute I am going to pick, we'll go to black, and then we'll go to something a little bit darker, around 80, and I say OK, and when I click away you can see now that that's a little bit darker. And then over here I will do the same thing by holding Shift and picking one of these kind of greenish faces, and it will grab all that, and then I will say copy, and here what I'll do is maybe just pick one of these and say OK a couple times. Looks a little bit better. And you know, you could do some other things too. You can hold your Shift key down and pick an edge. So what I'm doing there under propagation is, for edges I have opposite edges selected, and that will pick all rotated complete edges up until where it can't anymore. So you can see in the solid model we've got some non-tangencies. So we can hold Control plus Shift and pick some different edges, hold Control only and add different faces. Again, hold Control and Shift, and we can pick, you know, throughout the different areas of the solid that we want to pick. So getting a little bit better with being able to select solid model faces using the Control and the Shift keys, you know, to quickly grab different faces on the model. And then I can come in here and say copy and pick a different face for maybe a brass color. And now this holder looks pretty good. I might want to also, because I've done some of these before, and I'll use that Shift to grab the outside ribbon of this entire logo. You can see how quickly we can grab all of those outside solid faces, and again, holding Control, I pick the top face to add it to that, and then again right click, come to copy, attribute, and I use that blue for EWS, and I'll go back to a shaded view, and now we can see what this holder is going to look like when I load it into, oh, look at that, we've got some green. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing one more time, and yeah, just pick a different, maybe a different color, so we can see that all of the you know, the greens and oranges and reds and stuff like that are now more uniform looking and looks nice. So at this point we can go to File, Save As, and come to GDML holder file, browse to the location that you want to save this, and we'll actually, why don't we go ahead and load this in. So I will save this under my data folder, holders, EWS live milling. This was an index holder for the G series machines, and we will say save. So now we have this right here, There it is in the preview. You can see all the colors are exactly the way that we define them to be. Okay, so here is that file that I had earlier, and we're going to go ahead and just take a look at this here, and I'm going to come here to this holder. So you can go to a station and add, you can right click on a station and add an adapter, or if you have one, just edit it. I'm going to edit the existing one, and while this is not the correct holder for this machine, just keeping it simple here so I can demonstrate this for the video purpose only. So when we load that, you see I have 180-degree rotation here. So when I change that back to 0, you see that it's facing the main correctly. You know, and that's an interesting point. You know, this can be edited, so you know you're not going to put 90 obviously, but you can move these around to wherever you want in the ESPRIT simulation, but they do have to, actually that needs to be 0. They do need to be in the correct orientation for the feature to be machined. So once you've done that, you can add your tool, and then you can you can simulate your program. So that was the pocketing operation, so let's go ahead and check that out. So our tool's going to come in and start to do the machining. So there you have it, 45 degree, 60 degree, 30 degree, negative 45, whatever. All of that stuff, you can define it very quickly for use in ESPRIT simulation. So hopefully this gives you a lot of extra power and confidence in creating accurate programs upstream of the machine. So when you make the code and put it on the machine, it's ready to go.